Ronan O'Gara joins us on the line this morning. Morning, Ronan. How are things?
Morning. Hi guys. How are you?
Keeping well. You had a fascinating weekend last weekend with the Babas. Looked like a lot of fun, I have to say, Ronan. 35 points to 31 win over this New Zealand 15. Looked like a bit of crack.
Yeah, it was. It was a great week. Fantastic week. Just coming off, I suppose, the treadmill of a top 14, 10 weeks in a row, grinding away, and then just kind of absorbed or by results, and then you just see a complete different spirit of how the game can be played, and it probably poses more questions in your head. So it's good that this week is off as well, so we'll try and mix a little bit of the Baba spirit with, I suppose, the traditional structured approach to how the game is played. So this week has been pretty reflective week in terms of how best to prepare for the next block of games coming up with Europe beginning, but also the top 14 continuing to go on as well.
Ronan, it's a pretty minimal exposure to the Babas in terms of 1 week during the international window. Do you take anything from that back into La Rochelle, or is there anything that you can learn from that?
Yeah, you could take loads. I think it hits you hard sometimes in terms of maybe having too much of a straitjacket on guys, and I suppose the fundamental question I'm asking myself this week is that just how can you get players showing their natural instincts within a game plan, within a structure, because you have to have a little bit of structure, obviously, and that's, I suppose, the golden question for me is how do you let them play free, and how do you let them play with, I suppose, with some people they don't see it as quickly as other players, and that's, I suppose, always how, the great players, they seem that they have so much time on the ball. So we kind of came up from scratch and literally 3 training sessions, and we looked pretty good with the ball. So it just shows that it can most definitely be done. And sometimes I think we probably stagnate our players by probably over emphasising maybe structure and detail and a robotic approach. So for me it was fantastic in that regard, because I suppose things now to look at going forward.
I saw a great clip on Twitter, Ronan, amongst the celebrations. Adele, someone like you, being blared out by yourself and the players. I looked over to the left-hand side of the screen, and who was blaring it out with the most heart? I think it was yourself. So you don't want to give us a few bars this morning, no?
No, it was great, because we obviously, the big part of the Babas, you do a lot of restaurants during the week, so it'd be lunchtime or dinner time, a few beers are allowed. So we got that balance right early in the week. We went hard, and towards the end of the week that completely petered out. So I think for creating harmony and cohesion among a group, a sing-song does it. We had Joe Marler in the group, and we had a lot of French guys, so very, very, I suppose, different cultures and different personalities, but what united us was song. And I think on the Thursday night we had, or the Wednesday night, or maybe even the Tuesday night, I don't remember now, there was great, just spontaneous singing, because these things either happen naturally or they don't. There's nothing worse or more cringy than a forced sing song. So it just happened, and I think by the end of the night, Adele was probably the one that everyone bought in most of, so it kind of became our team song for the week. And then it was nice that Joe Marler led that. It was my first time, I suppose, in an environment with him, a pretty special character in the modern game, and very, I suppose, different to a lot of your normal players that play nowadays, but hugely interesting, and a great person to get to know.
We had Will Greenwood on the show last week, and he was looking forward to even being there and meeting up with yourselves. That partnership with Scott Robertson as well, it must have been great just for the two of you to kind of swap ideas and bounce off each other from a coaching point of view as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it goes, a lot happens too. Kind of, I suppose I left the Crusaders a few years ago now, and I'm stuck in my world, he's stuck in his world, but we're still involved in rugby, and it's very, very simple, really. But the approaches can be very, very different. So it was important just to probably check in with each other, see how we're going, what I need to get better at, what he needs to get better at. And it feels like I know him all my life, really, but I don't, obviously. But there's a very natural relationship there, and it's very easy for him to say harsh things to me, what I need to get better at. And he obviously understands the European game a little bit better from being in constant contact with me. So, I think what is, I suppose, the takeaway point is that he has a huge aura about him, but a very positive aura, and that goes straight into his environment. And I think we have to remind ourselves we're very lucky that we don't work, we coach rugby, and I'm very passionate about that, and I love doing that. But sometimes you can be, no matter how mentally strong you are, you can be, I suppose, ground down in the top 14. So the timing for me for a pause was beautiful. So just recharge the batteries this week and attack next week.
We've been hearing for some time that England's next coach after the World Cup is going to, preferably from their point of view, be an Englishman. But Bill Sweeney's come out this week, you've probably seen the quotes, saying it has to be the best coach. So the RFU's preference no longer for an Englishman to succeed Eddie Jones necessarily as England coach. Yourself and Scott, that could be a nice pairing, Ronan, surely?
Yeah, it could be. It could not be either. There's a lot to that. I think once you've kind of tasted being the head man, it's very, very probably your vision. Very, even two people very aligned sometimes don't have the same vision. So essentially only. But then again, titles don't really interest me too much. It's just a case of what role you'd like to do and what role Scott would like to do, and how you share responsibilities potentially. But even before that, it's a big mental leap for me to decide upon. I wouldn't be straight out with you. I wouldn't have given that the time required at the minute. All I said at the minute is that you wouldn't rule yourself out of that job. But if you were to commit to something like that, I think I'd have to sit down with my family and probably work it out, because I think I understand it's a professional game, but I also understand where I'm from and what I represent. So there's a few stages obviously before that becomes I suppose very hot.
100%. And it was interesting, even Brian O'Driscoll was on the show with Ger this week, and he's talking about that a lot of managers wanting to get into the international game. Of course, the club game is brilliant and it's exciting, and you're playing week on week, and then to get into the international game at some point is the dream for many. Like even Johnny Sexton was asked about this week, Ronan, and he name dropped yourself as well. He was asked if he was going to go into coaching himself whenever he decides to hang up the boots, and he said straight away, I don't think so. As a coach, you need to go out, you need to learn, you need to travel. My family is fairly settled in Dublin. My kids love it here. They've got their friends and family. I'm not going to do something like Rog has done, which is amazing. Go to France, go to New Zealand, come back to France, stay in France. He's been away from Ireland for 10 years. I'm not going to do that. Like it was interesting to hear him say that, because you've gone out and cut your teeth. I guess homesickness comes into it a lot as well. In order to get that experience abroad, you have to leave home.
You don't have to do anything. That's the simple answer to it. I think you can create a position that I think stimulates you. And Johnny would fit definitely into that category, because I think he's got an exceptional brain and he thinks about the game very differently to a lot of people. So he doesn't necessarily have to go away. I just think that it's very easy, I suppose, for people to observe and make general statements, but someone like Johnny wouldn't fall into a general category. He's very much an outlier in everything that he has done and will continue to do. So I think he would be a big addition to any coaching group. That's no doubt about it. He doesn't have to travel to do that. He'd be an on-field coach anyway in the last number of years, without a shadow of doubt, especially in the position that he plays and the leadership that he brings in that position. So I think you can see in sport, in the Southern Hemisphere, there's in a lot of the NRL clubs, and an awful lot of them are appointing leadership coach. But do you want a leadership coach that has qualified through university, or do you want it that has qualified through experience, or a mixture of both? Because I think you do need, obviously, the methodology, but also the structure behind you. But like Johnny would be a perfect example. in that case that he just has so much wisdom that he probably hasn't enough time left in his life to get that out, because he's excelling in the playing capacity. But it's very, very similar really in the fact that he wouldn't have to play, but he can also empower his players to play, or to hopefully get near where he played, and that would be a huge, I think, fascinating journey for him. But he'll decide that. I think he's right. I think the minute you start thinking of coaching, you lose it as a player, so he'll have plenty of time for that.
Sorry, Ronan, just to build on what you said there, it sounds like would Johnny be better served in almost like a technical capacity as a coach, or it sounds that he might be quite an inspirational addition to any coaching ticket based off what you said there?
Yeah, the perception sometimes isn't the reality. I think underneath the dour competitive Johnny, there's a very sensitive Johnny, there's a very funny Johnny, and he has a wicked sense of humour. I just think that when I suppose the public see him, it's in a sporting domain, but like, you can't be on all the time. There's plenty of times when he's off, and he's very, very good company to be around. So technically I think, having spent so much time with Joe, which should never be underappreciated, I think he has that, I suppose, detail in his game. But we're also seeing under Andy, I suppose, the capacity to get the best out of the human side of people. So you combine the two of them along with Johnny's natural ability and instincts as a person, that's quite an impressive potent of forces of strength. Sorry, I'm mixing my French and my English words.
You're so bilingual now, Ronan. It comes naturally.
No, believe me, I'm not. But when you're 10 years out, it begins to happen, because I'm thinking in French now as well as English.
That's unbelievable. Ronan, was the sad news of Jerry Holland's passing, talking about coaches and inspiring coaches this week, and of course it was terrible for everyone in Irish rugby and in Munster and down in Cork Con as well. You've written a lovely piece in your Irish Examiner column as well, referencing Jerry Holland. You said the quiet architect of special Munster days. I'd love to have told him in recent times how frequently I've leaned on his tutelage. It's a very sad loss.
Yeah, it is very, very sad, and I suppose a lot of, Golf Claw's group to Quinny's group to Paulie's group to Peter O'Mahony's group would be very touched by Hall, a special man. And it's not just because he's passed away we say that. I think he made men of a lot of boys, and I think he was very, very fair with us, and he showed us, I suppose, the hard and straight road. And one thing I always remember was kind of when you played in Musgrave Park or Port Ward or Red in Munster, irrespective of whether win or lose, if you show up, the public will respect you. And I think that's something that will always stay. I think you can't guarantee a result, but I think for Munster people, showing up and giving your all was what meant a lot to the people, and Hall instilled that in us.
I was actually reading back one of your older Examiner columns last night from, I think it was from 2016, from March 2016. You had a great story, if you'll allow me for a second. So you're talking about, once I arrived back to Munster pre-season with a bleached head of hair, I'd gone mad in Greece, obviously. We were treated to a horrible fitness session on the track at the Mardyke, animal stuff, 10 400 metre runs, followed by 10 more at 300 metres. We survived, and I anticipated a pat on the head from manager Jerry Holland, or maybe Niall O'Donovan, or forwards coach. Great session, Rod, you hung in there, good to see, that sort of thing. More fool me. Instead, Jerry stared at me. By the next session, have that hair gone. So no messing around with Jerry Holland, Ronan.
No, but it was just, like, I can only imagine what would happen. We probably would, with the GPS nowadays and the recovery with performance coaches, you wouldn't be allowed to train for a month if you did 10 400s, 10 300s. It was a time I actually, Tommaso O'Leary was picked up off the grass in the out by the farm by UCC, because we didn't have GPS. We used to just run till you drop, and. But that was the era we were involved in. Holly, exactly. It was kind of, I was feeling really good. Finished the session, great, nice work. And Hall was just looking at this little upstart, going, "Look at the state of this guy." And he didn't have to say it right. He just said, "Have that gone by Thursday night." And of course, there wasn't it wasn't a case of will I chance it now and try and get another few days out of it. First job done that afternoon was straight to the hairdressers and get it shaved off.
Did you think the bleached hair was going to make you faster, or what was the thinking behind it?
Nah, I just think, I see it with my 14-year-old now, you just think you're too cool for school, isn't it?
It's a 60-year holiday job, isn't it, really? Yeah. But sure, look, you can try it again, maybe go back to it at some stage for charity or something.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Or shaving, I don't have the right shaped head either. I don't get it tanned enough to peanut to pull it off, so
fair enough.
That's why I have the safe bet, which is short back and sides into the side for the last 40 years.
You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with that one, Ronan, to be fair. There was a great photo you had up on your social media. We're speaking of the Ireland-Australia game tomorrow night as well. We have it up on screen here. Congrats to Jack Crowley. He dreamt of today for a very long time. Well done. A lovely photograph of yourself years ago with a very young Jack. I don't know what age. Maybe he's probably 10 or 11 there, maybe. Like debut against Fiji last week. He's come a long way, Ronan, and I know you tried to bring him over maybe to La Rochelle at different points. He's a player you admire a lot.
Yeah, I've probably been tracking him for a long time. It was Donal Lennon that introduced me to him a long time ago, and Donal, obviously, he knows his cattle very well. And I just remember from meeting him I think it was in the Clarion Hotel maybe 4 or 5 years ago, just the way the guy spoke, I understood he got it and he wanted it. They're probably two of the most important things in the number 10 role, and I think he knew he'd have to have resilience. And I think already at a young age you'll go, well, he hasn't been tested, but he has been tested. I think now his growth could be huge. I think mentally he's done an awful lot of, I'd say, prep work to put himself in certain situations, like a game tomorrow night. I think will be good for him, and his ceiling could be huge. I think the combination of the experience of Johnny, but also the probably the exuberance and the young legs of Jack Crowley could be very, 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 very nice combo for Ireland.
Finally, Ronan, how do you see the game going? I guess Australia have a couple of defeats, but I mean, you can never underestimate them, and they'll probably love this idea of coming to Dublin and taking a scalp. It won't be all our own way, you'd imagine.
No, it will not be. No. You look at, they were unlucky. Only for a bit of Penot magic, they would have beaten France, and that's in France, in Stade de France. I think that game, which was, quite a composed performance from Australia. Very much controlled the game, and France were in big trouble. But Penot did what Penot does. Just a kind of one attacker against three defenders, and he somehow manages to score, which he's been doing for the last number of years. But Australia, then they probably change up a lot, and obviously Italy are showing better form than probably anticipated, and they turn over Australia. So their coaching group would be very impressive in Australia with Dave Rennie and Larry Fisher. Larry would have a lot of, I suppose, ins on the Irish team, and know them very well from his time in Munster and what makes Irish people tick. So the one thing about Australia is that they're very good. So I think what they'll need to probably get right, they'll need to be disciplined to make a game of it. If they can be disciplined, I think they probably have the rugby. But when Ireland put them, I suppose, in a squeeze, can they handle that mentally, or will they opt out with penalties? And penalties is field positions of pressure, and pressure usually, obviously it didn't in the Fiji game result in points, but in the South African game and previous to that, it results in points.
Ronan, great stuff as always. We'll have to get you back on again soon and get the Adele out of you, maybe, if you have a bit of time to practice between now and then.
No chance. See you, lads.
Great stuff. Thanks, Ronan.